Hello, gentle viewers. This is Indian, welcoming you to a new episode of Out of the Park Baseball 18. In our previous episode, we won infinitely more World Series championships than the original St. Louis Browns did, as we won 1 and they won 0. Before we go ahead and start planning for the 1940 season, let's take a moment to look at the team and see who did really well, who didn't do so well, and what we can do to make the team even better. We'll start with the lineup. So, Woody English really had an outstanding year. He was healthy for the first time in quite a few seasons, playing in over 150 games, generating plenty of offense, and playing effective defense. Not Gold Glove caliber, but pretty good. Bruce Campbell had a bit of a down year, particularly compared to where he was last season. Looks like his home run power dipped just a tiny bit, but he still remained an outstanding offensive player. We got an outstanding year out of Johnny Dickshot, who hit .329, led the league in triples. We probably can't count on that happening again, but it's nice to see that he did it once. Lou Boudreau having an outstanding second season, showing what it is he can bring, both with the glove and with the bat. Hank Sauer putting in a good rookie year of his own. He delivered the power that we expected from him, although overall he was actually a subpar player, with the bat at least. And this is because, apart from power, he didn't hit for a high average. But he did play a pretty fair center field. And at the end of the day, that's really all you can ask from an elite defensive position, to provide quality offensive support, which he did, at a difficult position. George McQuinn put in another year that we've come to expect from him. Just good all-around offense. His power is a bit lacking. I'd like to see the double-digit home runs, but I can't complain too much. And all of our starters were above replacement level, and we can't always count it, except for Bobby Reeves. But even Bobby Reeves was just replacement level, and it was mostly because he just didn't hit for power at all. He actually played, actually kind of a bad second base. So second base is a position where we could use an improvement. But the core is good. And most importantly, Campbell's getting older, as is English. But Boudreau, Sauer, McQuinn, all the three core players, Boudreau, Sauer, McQuinn, are all under 30, which is really awesome. Now, we need to keep supplementing our offense with young talent, perhaps in the vein of a Ken Sears, who really had an outstanding season for us, just providing good power from the catcher spot and some decent defense. But we could still use a little more young talent, because right now the minor league cupboard is bare. George Hausman might eventually reach a level where he could replace, what's-his-face? Bobby Reeves, but he's not there yet. He will be soon, but he's not there yet. And he's really the only top offensive prospect that we have. So there's good and bad, and we have to take the good with the bad. Pitching-wise, okay, this is just their offensive talent. I was like, there's no way they were all that bad. Bob Feller and Larry French had an outstanding season. Mel Harder was good. Al McClain was decent. And we got some good things from the rest of the rotation. But I definitely expect more Cy Young awards for our good friend Bob Feller. So, without any further ado, I think we go ahead and proceed to the draft. We'll do the Hall of Fame voting first. Now, the key is making smart draft picks, because we're going to be farther back now in the draft. And we can't always count on getting the best players. So we need to make smart picks. Picks that are the best player available, and not assuming that anyone is indispensable. We've got the core. We need to fill out the core with good young players that can handle us for years to come. I'm really interested in a new young shortstop, because Woody English won't be around forever. And a shortstop is probably the hardest position to find at this point in history. November 1939, nothing important happened in 1939. No wars, nothing like that. That's actually an interesting reason. One of the reasons I wanted to play when I did. I don't know if OTP is going to simulate the World War II phase. When, as I said in the last episode, a lot of major leaguers actually fought in World War II. Or they did like USO tours or whatever the equivalent was in World War II. I don't think it was called the USO at that point. But regardless, a lot of the best talent wasn't in the majors for one reason or another. Which meant that the overall quality of play declined a little bit between about 1941 and about 1944. A little bit. I think to equal Johnny Mize's home run total would literally take us 3 players. By Reese had 21 game hitting streak to end the season. That's pretty good. Al Wingo. That's kind of one of those records that it's just one of those things. It's taking surprisingly long to sim. Okay, here we go. The evil St. Louis. Didn't Lonnie Backer used to play for me? No? Okay. That's not an exciting deal. Who cares? Lou Gehrig, active leader in home runs. Don't be mean, Joe. I regret nothing. Okay. Anyone interesting in the Hall of Fame this year? Okay, Hod Eller is pretty damn solid. Definite first ballot. 272 wins. I don't think we have any 300-game winners in our version of the Hall of Fame. Let's take a look. 80 WAR for a pitcher. That's pretty hot stuff. I gotta give it to Joe Sewell. The problem is the Hall of Fame is so small at this point in history. Because remember, the actual Hall of Fame didn't open until 1936. And like Babe Ruth was in the first class. But Cy Young wasn't. Which means almost anyone we put in the Hall is going to drag it down a little bit. Joe Sewell seems like he's worthy of being added to the Hall of Fame. So I'll go ahead and cast a ballot for him too. I gotta like a guy named Rifle Jim. Even if his career isn't like outstanding or anything. It's still worth noting that he was pretty solid. And I'll toss a bullet Joe Bush's way. Oh, hang on. And Doc Ayers. So again, basically anyone above 50 WAR at this point, I will give a vote to. But the only absolute no-doubter for me is Hod Eller. With a possibility of Joe Sewell making it too. Let's vote. So I wonder... So we're still going to have the old National League's history. So I guarantee you the all-time win leader will still be Cy Young. Let's see. 511. Here we go. Okay, so Pete Donahue is someone that's entirely within our realm of... But he's actually still active. He could pass Old Hoss Radburn this year. Anyone else entirely here? Pat Malone? Hod Eller. Yeah, Hod Eller is actually your Leader up and Lefty Tyler, too. He would have been at least partially in our... when we start. What year did we start? If we look at me... So we started in 1925, so we went after 1920. Oh yeah, we started in 1920. There we go. So anything after 1920 would be someone that one of our players set the record. So yeah, Lefty Tyler, Taylor End, Pat Malone, your active Pete Dunne's your active leader in wins. We just don't have that many pitchers that are going to hit 300 wins. Which is fine, because even if you look at the real-life leaderboards like we see here, a lot of them came from the 19th century. When you only had one pitcher in the rotation. So, it's fine. I'm not going to cry too much about that. And we're going to be destroying like the entire offensive record book. It's not even going to be close. I mean, Ty Cobb is still going to have all-time hits for a long time. I don't think we have anyone right now that's active that has more than 3,000. Maybe we do. Was it Ty Cobb that was the hit king? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Ty Cobb. He got passed at some point by someone, like Ricky Henderson, maybe. Pete Rose, obviously, was the all-time hit king. And then there's Ichiro. And that depends entirely on if you count his Japanese hits as part of his record. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's your decision. But Ty Cobb was the all-time hit leader for about 50, 60 years. Until Pete Rose. Let's see here. Hits in a career. Okay, let's see. Ty Cobb retired in 1928. Oh, Cap Anson. He would have been the hit leader when we started. Man, George Sisler. Lou Fonseca. Damn, I didn't realize he was that close to the all-time hit. Les Bell. We were extremely fortunate to have a player like George Sisler, and I think he played for the Browns his entire career. He was really, really good for us. But he's not in the Hall of Fame yet because he's not eligible yet. But I'm sure he'll easily enter the moment he's eligible. Oh, yeah, it'll be 40 that he is. Might actually be this upcoming offseason that we can induct George Sisler. Exciting stuff. Right. Draft. Oh, the Pirates and the Indians must have won more games than we did. Okay. That's cool. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and sim up to my pick. And now let's see what we've got. We're going to start with batters because we really need a good, solid hitter. And right off the bat, we're already noticing the pickings have already gotten mighty slim. Chuck Connors actually had a career in Hollywood as the rifleman. I think that was him. It was one of those. But yeah, he was an actor. He didn't do much in baseball. As you can see here, he had like a tiny cup of coffee in the majors. But he became famous in Hollywood, so I guess he can't be too upset about that. This is a really terrible... Yeah, we kind of got screwed with how late we're picking. I mean, flags fly forever, right? Mike Portner. Wow. Is there like at least like a really good pitcher maybe? Or are we just totally screwed? Okay. So here's an interesting idea. He's a finished product, but he's not really good at much of anything except for stealing bases. And yeah. Spec Shea actually played in the majors for a while. Never really outstanding, but good. We just have... It almost doesn't even matter who we draft. because they're probably not going to make the majors, and if they do, it won't be anytime soon. I'd rather pick a really young player. I'm actually going to take Joe Brovia. Because he's got good power, and we always need power, but more importantly, he's so young, which means he could, like, find another gear that we don't expect. So I'll go ahead and draft him. Auto pick. Red Embry is an outstandingly terrible pitcher. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and sim the rest of the draft. This was a bad draft. I wonder who the first overall pick was. Just to satisfy my curiosity, who was the first overall pick in this draft? League history? No, we have to go by... Oh, no, we can... Yeah, we just click reports. No, sorry, logs, last draft log. Okay, George Kell was a Hall of Famer, but not because he was actually all that great. George Kell is one of the many, many, many Hall of Famers that made it in because he had really famous teammates that helped him get into the Hall. But George Kell is actually one of the worst third basemen in the Hall of Fame. If you just look at him, he just strikes you as meh. Johnny Pesky. He was pretty good. I don't know if Pesky ever actually ended up making the Hall. I don't think he did. He was good for a while, but not, like, brilliant. Andy Pofko. Warren Spahn. That's a good pick. Warren Spahn, one of the best left-handed pitchers to ever play Major League Baseball. Allie Reynolds, pretty impressive. Allie Reynolds was always one of those pitchers who a lot of people are like, his career tailed off pretty dramatically. But if he'd like hung together for a while longer, just had a little better success earlier in his career. He played for Cleveland for a while, and he pitched pretty well, but the team sucked. And there wasn't much that could be done about that. But Reynolds was borderline Hall of Fame talent. It just never really ended up amounting to it. So we've got a real Hall of Famer in Warren Spahn, and a fake one in George Kell. Anyone else that's interesting? Not really. Okay. I'm curious to see how George Kell does in our version, but again, he wasn't that great in real life. Here's the thing. Brovia is so unimpressive. I'm going to try something I've never done before in OTP 18. I'm going to sign nobody. Because even if he hits his full potential, he's one of the worst players. And it's not about the money. This is about hoarding the draft picks so that next season, maybe, we can get a few better players. I'm actually going to punt on the draft this season. At least the ones that want signing bonuses. Yeah, I'm not going to sign anyone. I'm going to let them all go back into the draft. Or I'm going to let them go whatever they want to go with. I think I explained this in the draft video, but in case you didn't know, if a player is drafted and doesn't sign a contract for whatever reason, he goes back into the draft the next season. If the team doesn't tender him a contract. The player can't choose not to sign a contract with the team that drafted him, usually. It happens, and it's happened in Major League history, like with J.D. Drew, where he was drafted by, I think, the Phillies, and he didn't want to play in Philadelphia, and he basically told them to go fuck themselves when they offered him money. And he got to go back in the draft the next year and got drafted by St. Louis. Really? You're going to... Sewell should have made it in the first ballot, but whatever. This, by the way, was attributed to Early Wynn, and it was about his grandmother. I said, would he brush back his grandmother? And he said only if she was digging in. J.D. Drew, right. So J.D. Drew basically told them to get fucked, and he didn't sign the contract, and he went back in the draft the next season. But holdouts like that almost... never happen. Excuse me. Oh god, J.D. Drew's killing me. Because J.D. Drew, I believe he had finished college at that point, so he literally didn't play baseball for a year. Which would, of course, be really, really bad for your career. It's different if you're a high school player and you get drafted and you say, nah, I don't... I'm not dying, I promise. You said I'm going to go back and play in college. That's not what happened. I just think he just didn't play for a season. It made a lot of people in baseball really angry when it happened. And I'll get a bunch of draft picks next year. So this is a small bug in the way that OTP works compared to to the way that the CBA changed in 2018. Or was it 2016? I don't remember what year it was. Compensation picks don't get you more compensation picks. So I didn't sign these two guys, and they were compensation picks, so now they're compensation picks. You can't just you can't eternally kick the can down the road in the real majors. But yeah, J.D. Drew it was actually a big favorite of mine for a long time. A bit of my baseball video game backstory. So the very first baseball game I ever really played and enjoyed was High Heat, 2001. And I played as the Indians, of course. But the games went so quickly that I actually decided I wanted to play two teams at the same time. And I picked the St. Louis Cardinals. So anyone who played for the 2001 Cardinals is somebody kind of like this small place in my heart. And guys like Fernando Tatis, Ray Langford, Jim Edmonds, J.D. Drew, Matt Morris pitched for him that year. I think it was his rookie year. A couple other people. But yeah, it was a big deal for me. And I really enjoyed playing High Heat. I really feel bad about the High Heat franchise. Because it was such a great computer game. It was really in-depth. Lots of tremendous stats. And then EA came out with Triple Play. And Triple Play was very much arcade baseball. I remember hitting like 150 home runs with Jim Thome in one season. Stupid, silly numbers. But everyone was like, oh my god, this is so much fun. And High Heat kind of started to fall behind. And High Heat would take one step forward and like 10 steps back each season. Where instead of just fixing bugs and making improvements like OTP does, they try to keep reinventing the wheel. And it would just end up terribly. Really actually disappointing. It could have been an all-time great franchise. And it's still one of my all-time favorites. But it just ended up not working out. Which is kind of a shame. What do we do with Caliphate? Well, does anyone at all want something for him? I could upgrade at first base, but I'm not sure it would be an upgrade. Nah. I'll just keep Califoot where it is. Did Hausman get a little bit better in the offseason? He did improve a little bit. He had a good overall year in 1939. If he can hit for average in the majors, I might call him up next season. But I do want him to get a little bit fresher. I'll put Califoot on the roster just because, and I'll do it for Chamberlain and Jenkins as well. They've all been in my system long enough that they've earned, I think, a cup of coffee. Ken Richardson, maybe. Kind of throw him in here, too. And then I'll just have the, as I usually do, I'll just have the bench coach set the lineups and the pitching staff. I'll go ahead and do 6-man rotation. It's the spring, so I have no problem at all with doing a 6-man rotation. Right, how are we looking on time? Okay. What we'll probably do is we'll probably just go up to opening day, since I had to talk a little bit more than I expected and then almost choked to death on my own spit, or my own cough, rather. But yeah, just the High Heat franchise just had so much potential. Okay, so you're going to offer me a shortstop who plays fairly decent defense but can't hit. And in exchange, you want a pitcher who's kind of okay now, but is in all reality actually a fairly terrible pitcher who will never make it beyond the bullpen. Okay, what do I know about him? He'll hit decent for decent power, and he's a pretty decent fielder. I will make this trade simply for one reason. I don't need relievers, and I do need shortstops. But can we make this a bigger deal? Andy Pafko, Don White, You really don't have that great in the way of prospect. Actually, Pafko could be a great hitter someday, but you're not gonna give me a 5th overall pick without me giving up something substantial. Yeah, you only want my core, so yeah, I'll take this trade. It doesn't hurt, at least, and sometimes those marginal moves can have a big payoff. So I'm not at all displeased by just making a move at the margins just for the sake of having a move. But yeah, the High Heat got too caught up in the idea that they needed better graphics, when I thought the representations in the original were fine. And instead of, again, making incremental improvements, they went too all in. They had this awful interface. I think it was the last High Heat 2004. You couldn't use a bloody mouse in the menu. I was like, what? It was bad. And then High Heat went in the toilet, and then Triple Play went in the toilet. And now EA doesn't have a baseball game anymore because when EA got the Madden franchise, it pissed a lot of developers off. And so the people who make MLB The Show, Sony, bought the exclusive license for PlayStation, and I think 2K Sports got it for Xbox. And what would that have been? Would that have been the Dreamcast? Was the Dreamcast still out when they started with that? I don't know. Oh, and it's opening day already. Top 100 prospects. I guarantee you I have the very worst. I have the worst minor league system, I bet. I'm only second worst. I'm not dead last. Yeah, I keep forgetting. So, service time isn't as big a deal because arbitration isn't a thing yet. So, I don't actually have to worry about stopping before opening day, which is really good news. But we're nearing the end of the episode. Will we repeat? That's a great question. I think I'm going to take a suggestion that I believe... Sorry if I get your screen name wrong. Either Iridescence 95 or 95 Iridescence. Maybe Iridescence 93. There's an Iridescence and there's a number in there that begins with 9. And I might go to a 4-man rotation all season, which is actually a bit ahead of the curve. Because... No, actually... Yeah, because... I think we're going to a 4-man rotation when other teams are just beginning to flirt with 5-man. Maybe. See, in the real life majors, they never use They never use six-man rotations. That was never a common thing. Instead, you were far more likely to see 1-man rotations gradually increasing to 2- and 3-man. To the point where 4-man rotations dominated the game till about the 70s or early 80s, but 5-man rotations were being experimented with right around World War II, actually, because they didn't have as many good pitchers. But I think we'll go with a 4-man rotation. I'm not confident enough in either Mel Harder or Al McLean to do 3-man, but 4-man definitely. But that'll be an apt topic for next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. As we try to continue the St. Louis Browns, try to earn them another world title. It could be done. Let's see what happens. Until then, this has been Avindian. Please like, subscribe, comment down below if you haven't already. Let me know what you think of how our offseason went, of my curious draft no-one strategy to get better draft picks next season. And until next time, this has been Avindian, and I bid you good day.